Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Modern Market, where every day we discuss all things to do with the market. That is the crypto market, the NFT market, and the normal stock market, and everything in between. Trying to make some or a lot of money on the internet as usual. Loaded up for discussion today. We are talking about the Venezuelan Stock Exchange, up more than 2x since the Maduro capture. China will be paying interest on the digital yuan in attempt to boost adoption. And finally, in crypto land, the Zeke team have resigned, sending Zcash down 20% to under $400. What, um, what, what craziness! It's pretty outrageous news, to be honest. I was thinking about my other stock investments now, and how that doesn't really happen in the normal world. So we'll talk about that. We can get into that drama. We've also got the latest on crypto price action and other stuff as well. So stay tuned for that. I've got Legendary in the co-host seat with me today. We're ready to get into it. Just a reminder, friends, before we do, nothing that we say here is financial advice. The market is very, very risky. We do not know anything for sure. So please do proceed with caution and exercise your own judgment. Also looking forward to have a little bit of a general portfolio chat today with Legendary, given we'll get into some general updates and thoughts for 2026 as we continue to build out our theses for this year. So before we get into it though, Legendary, how you doing?
GM Jim, I'm very annoyed. It's literally yesterday that I bought, or 2 days ago, that I bought Zcash for the first time. Like I ignored it for so long, and now this happens. I was, I was so good and so well off by ignoring it, but then I had to click the button, and the Zcash apocalypse followed.
I, I've honestly been thinking about this so much, like about being patient, about not clicking the buttons. I obviously told you guys I bought some Bitcoin yesterday at 92.5 or something after it dipped down from 94. I just got rid of it at 91.9 or something. Like I was just like, why did I bother clicking the button? Like because I was trying to do this evaluation of where's the best risk reward right now. I don't mind Bitcoin here, by the way. I think I'm not 100% sure in what direction it's moving. I'm not as bearish as I was before. Um, but when I think about, for example, the stock stuff that I've started doing and where I think that stuff will go, and how soon I think it can get there, I was like, what am I doing buying this coin? This coin just keeps fluttering around in this specific area at the moment. Definitely not as bearish as I was before, but it's about relative risk reward, isn't it? And I just got rid of the not huge amount of Bitcoin that I bought yesterday for a very small loss, and kind of deployed everything and more into something else that I've been looking at and maybe feeling a bit more confident on at the moment. So, uh, any reflections there on, I don't know, clicking the buttons, relative opportunity? How are you thinking about things?
Yeah, I think it's this pockets of opportunity thinking that we need to keep. There is opportunities in the market, but I think there's also very, very good value of being patient at the moment. And maybe I wasn't with the Zcash, maybe you weren't with the BTC stuff. So wait and see might not be the worst thing at the moment, I'd argue.
Yeah. One question on the coins that were popular that have been on their run. Because I think, okay, look, this is how I'm thinking about it, guys. It's for everyone. I'm talking directly to Legendary here, but also I know this is for everyone. This is how I'm thinking about it. Or one of the things I'm looking out for. I'm trying to look out for every new cycle has a new thing, right? And you have to concentrate yourself in where that hyper liquidity is moving. So at one point in 2021, and that's the only time I came in the space in 2021. It was NFT, so you had to be on ETH, and if you were holding that asset, that would go up because the velocity of activity around that ecosystem was exceptionally high, and so it was really good. Um, then you moved to Sol. Meme coins were on Sol. You really wanted to hold Sol, and you wanted to play in that ecosystem. That's where the velocity of stuff was happening. Okay, so you win there. Next, you had hype. Hype. Everyone was doing all this stuff on perps. Open interest was incredibly high. Volumes were incredibly high. Excellent product, making tons of money. Lots of people made a lot of money with that airdrop. That's the ecosystem you wanted to be in. Now, I don't think I think we're still in the tail end of, you know, moving on to the next perp exchange only because Hyperliquid has been successful. And so, people are still trying to say that all of those things will be as valuable as Hyperliquid. And I don't think they will be. Some of them, like, look, Lighter is a good product and it will be valuable and it is valuable. And maybe the next one or two will be valuable, but I don't see them. I think a lot of volume will return either to Hyperliquid or Lighter after all of this. And I guess I've just kind of got my eye out for a next thing. I don't really see it at the moment though. And Zcash, to be fair to you, Legendary, I actually bought Zcash higher than this, but not a lot. I literally bought I bought one Zcash one day, bought another Zcash another day. So it was like very, very small amounts. And I think privacy is a potential thing that someone can believe in. That was my general thesis, but I don't necessarily think that that's where all the hyperactivity has gone. Like, I haven't seen a huge amount of activity going on in the privacy arena. Although I know more Zcash than ever has been like shielded or something like that. But it's not the same as like meme coins on Sol or NFTs on ETH. So I'm kind of wondering, do we go back to hype? Are you meant to go back? Like, when we moved on to Sol, are you supposed to go back to ETH? When you move on to hype, are you supposed to go back to Sol? Like, are we supposed to go back to hype here, or are you supposed to just be patient and wait for the next thing? That's how I'm thinking about it. What do you think?
It's an excellent question, and this going back to hype, going back to ETH, staying on Sol. Actually, when I did this analysis of the like big institutions, VCs, etc., forecasting 2026, this was the biggest discrepancy. Like, you had basically one set in there who's saying future is building everything modular still on ETH, building out the L2s. And then you had the other large part arguing exactly the other way, saying, nope, we need one place, one alternative L1 needs to win, and Solana is the one. Obviously, both of these opinions probably come with a good back bias, depending on who's invested in what ecosystem. But I, even abstracting from these opinions or from these like articles, research pieces, whatever, I think it's a very non-trivial question to figure out like how, because ultimately the question then becomes like, how is attention shifting and when or where is it shifting back? And even to the smaller extent of, remember the early hyperliquid lighter conversation that we had, like very early on when we started in some chats, I think it was, or I in particular started to speak about lighter. There was like a lot of hyperliquid is in growing mode. Why would I grow? Why would I grow? Why would I go to lighter? Then you had some sort of sentiment shift happening. And was that because hyperliquid peaked? It wasn't really, because hyperliquid did continue to grow from 40 to 60-ish when lighter also started to gain momentum. So like kind of understanding how attention is shifting and shifting back is helpful with that. But I think that by doing the show, we get a very good like big long-term and mid-term picture, but sometimes nailing down the like micro movements of what's going on right now in the market, or us trying to time a BTC entry or what is the more difficult one. It basically what we have been saying about the show, right? It's easy to use the attention and the news cycle to call the top, but basically trying to find a good entry is way more difficult if you look at the same data set.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's harder to kind of catch the bottom than it is for us to call the top. The tops, as you guys know, if you've been listening to the show for, I don't know, 12 months, 18 months, 24 months, we are pretty decent at knowing when things are just getting insanely frothy. There's so many indicators. We also get great data on the kind of background media side, whether it's sponsorship requests or whether it's just pure numbers and metrics and growth. We've been pretty excellent at that. It's definitely harder, I think, on the other side. Although, as we do that more, I'm sure we're going to get better. The the key thing the key thing I'm thinking about at the moment, Ledge, is you got to know you've got to know what type of trade you're putting on and what type of trades you can do that can keep you winning and stay successful in the long term in crypto. Ultimately, in this space, if all you did and remember, I'm a relatively lazy trader. I don't want to click a million buttons. If I if I can do fewer trades, that's better, and that's the kind of direction I'm heading towards. Now, if I look back over my 4 or 5 years here, if all I ever did was buy ETH low and do some NFTs and sell high, and then rotate into Sol and buy Sol low and then sell Sol high, and then you sell into hype and then you sell hype high, you win. Like you don't actually need to do anything else. So what I'm learning from that is, and I know that's actually way harder said than done, right? I definitely missed the ETH to Sol rotation because I was married to ETH. But then because I knew that, I'd learned, okay, it seems like in each of these new stages of crypto, there's like a new thing that becomes the foremost thing. And all you need to do is to be in that one and ride that one and go with the natural momentum. I didn't miss well, whatever I was in, maybe I was still in ETH. To be honest, I was probably rotating from ETH into hype at that point in time. So you've got that potential trade. So I don't think that trade exists right now. I.e., I don't think that there's a trade that is like this is the next thing where everyone should be focusing, and therefore this is the best thing. If you just buy this asset spot and wait 6 months, you're going to be way higher than you are now. Maybe in my mind, I was like, is Zcash or something privacy related? Like, could that be the thing? But it's not the same as the other thing. It's not like there's all of this activity going on it to justify why, I know people want to believe in it, which is good as well. But to me, that trade doesn't exist. So I think when we are looking for, but then you have to be aware of that, or this is how I'm looking about it anyway. I have to be aware of that and know, okay, well, if I'm buying Bitcoin here, it's not because Bitcoin right now is the next thing. I mean, look, it's already fully established, but it's not because it is the mega thing right now. And in 6 months, it's definitively going to be loads higher. It's because I think it's going to go from 92 to 105. And that's the trade that I'm making. So I guess that's my point. I don't think that there is a trade right now that is buy this spot and in 6 months you're way higher because you're just riding the wave. Do you agree with that? Do you disagree with that? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it ultimately is also an eloquent way of then saying that time in the market beats timing the market. Maybe if we are happy to use the show data to call the top, and then we just DCA in over the lull or the more bearish period, that's ultimately fine. I also don't think that we need to nail every single rotation. Um, Looking back at, and I think I can speak for both our portfolios, like a few trades a year are making up for the majority of the gains or plays, investments, whatever that we've seen. And I also agree that I don't think there's like one imminent play that is the hype rotation, the Sol rotation of the start of 2026 right now. YouTube comments are saying Venezuelan stocks are this play at the moment, and we have a headline around that. But yeah, I just don't think there's any obvious play right now to like fully allocate to, or not fully allocate, like to allocate with whatever your own risk profile says that a full allocation is for your portfolio and portfolio size.
I agree, and I think that's kind of going to the point that I'm making. I always keep saying like the best trades for me are when you take something that's undervalued to fair value, and you're just riding the natural state of things. You're just riding the natural wave. You don't need to pump it. You don't need to tweet about it. It's not relying on influence of this or that. It's just the thing is too low versus what attention and activity it is inspiring, and you sit in it and you ride the wave. You do that with ETH, you do that with Sol, you do that with hype, and then you do that with the next thing, and you just naturally go higher. And to be honest, I'm not. Yeah, I guess my point is I'm kind of beating it to death, but I don't see that thing right now in crypto. I do think that there are things happening outside of crypto, so that's why we've been talking a little bit about more stocks. I've shared a couple of things the other day. I think we'll continue to do that. over time, where I think there's just more opportunity there sometimes, until you see the one emerging within crypto, and then you can try to jump on that. And we'll be here to try to notice that. Um, that's my thinking at the moment. Ledge, anything else on this kind of little roundup before we get into the main stuff today?
Nothing of substance to add.
All right. There we go. We've got a bunch of headlines and some further interesting conversation to have today, as usual. But let's get you up to speed first with everything that you need to know from around the market, starting with the price action. As always, Bitcoin is down 2% now, down beneath 90K. Thank God I sold that little bag that I bought the other day. 89.7K, down 2%. ETH is down 3%, down beneath 3,100. XRP is down 7% to $2. BNB is down 2% to 882. Sol is down 3% to 133. We have, let's check on the others. Hyperliquid down almost 4% to back to 25.97. Zcash, as we said, down almost 20% to 395. We've got more news on that around the team resigning. Pretty dramatic stuff. Sui's down 6% as well to $1.70. Getting into the meme coin side of things, unsurprisingly, a red day on that side too. Doge is down 6%. Pepe's down 7%. Pump is down 14%. Trump is down 3. Bonk is down 8. Pengu's down 7. SPX is down 6. Fartcoin is down 10. So as we said, red day across the board. Memes a little bit more red. Getting into the headlines themselves, which we'll be talking about in a minute. Legendary will take us through the Venezuelan Stock Exchange, up more than 2x since the Maduro capture. Also, in interesting news, got to keep abreast of this. China to pay interest on digital yuan in an attempt to boost adoption. That's very interesting to keep an eye on what China's up to there. I listened to a very interesting podcast earlier today between Balaji and David Freeberg talking about what's going on in China. And finally, the Zcash team resigned, sending Zcash down 20% to $395. Legendary will take us through what that even means. How is that even possible? What's going on for the privacy narrative as a consequence? Some notable price action. White Whale hits $100 million. Congrats to White Whale holders. Monad is down 7% to 2.6 bill FDV. CryptoPunk floor is down to a $92,000 floor. In other news, Trump bans institutional investors from buying single-family homes. A lot of news happening. A lot of like big headline-making statements being made. Big news. Also, by the way, to keep an eye out for tomorrow. Tomorrow we get the Supreme Court thoughts on the Trump tariffs, whether they are constitutional, whether they're unconstitutional, whether there's going to have to be a refund there. That's a very, very big thing to keep an eye on. So just constant headlines at the moment. Morgan Stanley files for ETH ETFs. JP Morgan announces JPM Coin will be on Canton chain for settlement. Barclays invests in stablecoin settlement startup Ubix. And Wyoming launches state stablecoin FRNT on Sol. A couple of other bits of news. Video content platform Rumble announces a wallet for payments to creators. I think that's pretty cool. And then finally, MemeLad reveals upcoming art update for captains. Seems like it's been teased, like that it might be coming pretty soon. So let's see what happens there. With that out of the way, Legendary, before we get into the main stuff today, what's catching your attention? It feels like a lot of stuff is going on, particularly on the US political front, but anything else catching your attention? Do you want to double click there? Where do you want to go?
Definitely want to double click on that. I think the first piece in the roundup, Lockheed Martin, is perfectly continuing the conversation that we had before in terms of trying to time some short-term trades. Like imagine trying to trade that yesterday. You have the ban on stock buybacks. You are shorting Lockheed Martin. You're selling your position just to be followed by an announcement by Trump, as you said, that they are to increase military spending from 1 to 1.5 trillion and sending Lockheed and other stocks higher than they even were before that dump, and ultimately closing out on that day in the green. So a very, very fair amount of intraday volatility, which we're seeing. I think that for the last, don't quote me, that 60 or 90 days, S&P 500 intraday volatility has been around 72 bips, which is also quite significant for that. And yeah, that's the one I wanted to touch on because I feel like it kind of expresses a perfect continuation of the conversations that we just had before.
Mm, yes. And it does make you wonder, right? I think something like Intel was up 10% yesterday, 8%, 9%, getting like really significant moves in the normal market with very important companies, very influential companies that are, kind of government adjacent now with the way that the US government's been taking a bit of um, an active role in stimulating certain industries. And so, you know, it's basically it's just not obvious to me that you need to be in crypto to get volatility. Of course, at the extreme end, Pepe going up 60% in the week is wonderful, but you needed to be in it and have bought at that exact day. So, I mean, I'd love a risk reward analysis of thinking about the likelihood of any individual actually catching that very specific bottom. Because then as soon as you've missed that bottom, I think it went up maybe 2 days and then it's, back to going down again. And who knows, maybe that's a turnaround, but it's hard to say. Whereas you probably got a little bit of downside protection here on stocks, although obviously they are at all-time high. I don't know if you saw this, Ledge, before we get into the other main stuff, or if this is accurate. I saw something about short interest on the stock market being at all-time highs. Did you see that yourself? Do you have a view on the stock market in general and how high it's going? Obviously, one of the things a lot of people will laugh about is if all of crypto, including myself, decide crypto's not the place to get volatility. Got to get out, got to get into stocks, and then it turns out that you buy the generational top. Well, it's never going to be the generational top, but a local top maybe in stocks. Do you have a view there? Do you know if that's accurate that this is the most amount of short interest there's been on the S&P? What do you think?
I wouldn't read too much into it, to be honest. I think we had that news a couple of times over the last year, which is probably just a logical continuation of what is happening. S&P 500 hit all-time high yesterday. It hit all-time highs, just getting into the chart, multiple times over the last year. And whenever you hit an all-time high, you will have some large institutions, hedge funds, whatever, who want to hedge the mega caps, who will go short or who will have short interest put on, and then you will have that market thinking, oh, we hit an all-time high, we're probably gonna um, not smash through that and just go up in a straight line. Might have a hedge on there, and as the S&P 500 is going up in numbers, so does the total market cap of the stock market. Then in proportion, also the short interest will increase with that. So because it happens, or that did happen around the all-time high, which we had yesterday or the day before, sorry, I wouldn't read too much into that short interest number.
Do you know what I'm thinking? I'm thinking like I don't know if I'm agreeing with you, but I think I'm kind of in agreement with you, but maybe I'd be stronger in my words at the moment. Like I I, I think you can't. The market's not going to just go down because everyone is scared and starts shorting a lot. Like that's too predictable. And if anything, I don't know. It's this odd scenario, isn't it, where everything's so expensive and everything's so inflated, but people are entirely scared at the same time that it is so inflated. Like everyone's super conscious of the fact that it is so inflated. The one counter I would say to that at the moment, and we kind of touched on it a little bit yesterday as we went, or the day before, as we went through Dalio's 2025 reflections, is a lot of these gains are superficial. Like I don't know if I don't know if our brains, and this includes people old, especially people older than us, actually, because I think they find it even harder. I don't know if people's brains have been recalibrated to how much inflation there has been and how inflated everything has got. I know that they've felt it in their pocket as they walk around and try and buy various things and seen how the cost of living has gone up so aggressively. But I don't I think they're like looking at these numbers and thinking that they're silly or that they're too high when actually it's just a pure, or at least it's in part a pure reflection of the dollar being worth a hell of a lot less than it used to be. So if anything, they just have to inflate as well. Um, and it won't make sense because your valuation model was based on a dollar value that was different. And I don't think people have updated that as they then try to price their stocks in dollars, if that makes sense. Ledge, what do you think about that? So basically, in short, I think this is going to go loads higher over the course of the Trump presidency. I think it's going to be very volatile because they just keep coming out with banger headlines all the time. But I think we're going to go loads higher. What do you think?
I tend to agree with the underlying thinking that we haven't like readjusted to the higher numbers. The part where I think I have a different opinion is the reason being inflation. Inflation is something that obviously is not a new concept, and I would argue that like markets and market participants are used to like think to include inflation in their thinking. But what definitely has happened is that with the massive inflows into ETFs, into S&P 500 ETFs in general, and with the like overvaluation of so many companies where we are not really looking at PE multiples anymore, that the numbers in general have reached such an absurd height that it's like difficult to process them. I mean, favorite example that comes to mind is Elon's compensation plan, where of course he has to hit tons of KPIs and grow, I think, Tesla 7 or 8x from there, which also would insinuate a massive, massive success for the robotic division. But then that would unlock, if all these criteria are met, would unlock a 1 trillion bonus payout for him, which is just so absurd and so hard to process that I think this is happening. And obviously, with US debt like climbing as rapidly as never before, it becomes harder to relate to the numbers. But I don't think that inflation per se is the main driver of that. It's of course a key factor, but it's not something new per se, and it's been like relatively stable over the last years.
I don't know. I feel like inflation's really ramped up in the last few, at least. But I know what you mean in the sense that people have to factor that in. Um, Tone World in the comments on Twitter says, "Got to track stock prices in gold." Yeah, we went through that the other day, right? Like when you do compare the stock market returns in or versus gold, like it basically underperformed gold. It and then also did really poorly against a ton of other um, currencies as well, and other equities even. So not a perfect picture, but I think if you were to look at I mean, every time I listen to Balaji, he just goes off and really gets so negative on the dollar. Um, I listened to the conversation with Freeberg earlier today, and very interesting conversation as always. With his I think the thing on the horizon that I'm looking at more than anything is the this rise of socialism in the states is interesting. It's happening both in the left, well, the literal west of the country, in this kind of California tax on unearned. I don't know how exactly they phrase it. It's unmade gains or something like that. Uh, and but it's kind of a disguised wealth tax, I think. And then also you've obviously literally got an elected, um, elected uh, mayor of New York who is, I think it'd be fair to say, is pretty far on the left too. And then you have this kind of Republican, the rest of the country being Republican and maybe being embracing the free market stuff. But at the same time, it's not really an embracing of the free market because they're getting involved in all the companies. So there's just this interesting dynamic happening at the moment where I don't necessarily think these people are as far away from each other as they think. It's hardly free market for the US government to take a position in Intel. It's hardly free market for the government to take a position in a couple of other companies as well. It wasn't just Intel. There's a number of other companies that they're taking positions in. Um, so I think, and Balaji's position was that the US kind of splits over time into the Republicans being Bitcoin maxis, and the left, which I think is quite dramatic, kind of embracing the Chinese Communist Party, the CCP, literally. So I don't know, but I do think that this divide is certainly not going anywhere. And in both scenarios, and actually I've started to more to think that 2026 can be a good year, because the further away we are from the potential questions of where the socialism is going to go and if it's going to creep into government. A lot of people say actual socialism is unelectable in the States, so maybe it doesn't matter, or maybe it's just not going to happen. But in an election cycle, I think that will spook markets quite a lot the closer we get to the election. So I think 2026 being the second year of Trump's presidency, further away than the third and fourth, could potentially be a good one. That's how my thinking is evolving. Les, do you have a view on that before we get into the main stuff today?
One point that I want to pick out, and also want to hear from Frankie then, who has his hand up, is that part where you said the U.S. government taking interest in companies like Intel, and trying to even keep Nvidia and others very, very close. I think that is 100% true. 100% agree with that. And I think the reason is that I think both US and China and a couple other countries obviously have realized that this AI war, AI battle, for AI hegemony, AGI models, etc., is too important to completely let it up to the free and open market to decide what happens. And the government has a massive interest in controlling some of these outcomes.
Okay. Makes sense. Funky, your hand is raised. Official US of A correspondent. What is your take on some of our thoughts here?
First of all, a great conversation. And I think the inflation stuff that you're referencing, B, has a direct correlation to what we're seeing in that political split. Many of us who are probably listening to the show or, in the crypto space are fairly price insensitive, right? Like, I don't complain that eggs now cost like $12 a dozen for me to get real stuff that's raised in a pasture and organic and whatever. I'm still going to eat eggs, right? But the money, like when I was a kid, and this is probably coming from a 50-year-old point of view, to get a $10 bill or a $20 bill, I felt like I was rich in the 80s. And up until certainly COVID, it was still a decent amount of money. 20 bucks buys you nothing now. And I think a lot of the unrest is, to your point that you've made multiple times, being you've got me thinking about this a lot, is that the middle class is a historical anomaly. And we're seeing that gap widen. So the people who are probably moving in that direction politically are the ones that are the most disillusioned by the current system, by the current economic status. There's no way for them to get ahead. Many people that are not keeping pace with the inflation, which is a lot of people in this country, they're really feeling this. And it's hard for them to ever get any kind of edge because they don't have money to put in the stock market. They don't have money to put even in an index fund, because they are literally, I bet half this country is living paycheck to paycheck. And then there's even people who are making six figures who in certain cities or maybe California
Yeah.
claiming paycheck to paycheck. So it's a big, big, big problem. And I think this is going to cause a significant amount of unrest, especially with AI and job loss and everything else. The next 5 years is going to be very, very interesting.
Yes, I completely agree. Thank you for that extra context. The thing that I think about, and the reason why I think it starts to break people's brains when they see numbers and then they're getting extra scared that, oh my God, the numbers are too high. I think they're not too high. I don't know if any of you have heard, I can't remember the expression, so I'm just going to make it up. And I think it's roughly what it was. Something like, okay, I'm literally just going to make up the expression. It's like, in your 20s, I don't even know if this is the expression. It's it's something like, what is the expression? The idea that, like, when you're in your 20s, you can still learn things. Take tech for an example. Well, no, okay. So say you're a teenager, you get the new tech, you just do it, no problem. You just absorb it, you learn it, no stress, no having to think twice about it. When you're getting later into your 20s, you're like in this 18th version of the iPod or whatever, oh god, this is actually kind of annoying to learn. I wish I could just keep the one before. They've changed the thing. They've changed the interface for Facebook. Why do they do that? I don't know everything. It become the thing for learning gets a bit harder. By the time you get into your 30s and then beyond, you're kind of you're kind of losing it. Like we've got to, it gets a lot harder. I know we're trying to stay agile here and learn with the AI and do all this stuff, but the learning curve obviously gets harder, and the rate of change is hard to process and understand. And I think a lot of the analysts and a lot of the people who are scared now are people who are older, who are looking at these numbers, not appreciating the things that I guess the younger people would be looking at and just being like, yeah, cool. Everything, like if eggs have gone up 6x, why hasn't the stock market gone up 6x? I mean, look, that might be a really trivial, maybe immature thing to say without much knowledge, but like it would not surprise people, I think, who are younger when they see everything else going up so much, that the stock market has also gone up so much. Like, I don't think it's as shocking as people think that it is, who are older, who are using the old models and unable to process the new world because they've just got older. That's my take. I don't know if I butchered the saying. I kind of just made it up. I came up with my own analogy. Ledge, any final thoughts there before we get into the main stuff?
Yeah, I'm laughing along because I see English in the YouTube comments saying neuroplasticity as a 44-year-old, I feel attacked and I call cap.
I'm talking to you, English. I've seen your YouTube comments getting less funny as the years have gone by. Need you to step it up to show that you still got it. Yeah, that's my point. I don't know if it's 100% accurate. It's a view that I have taken, and I stand by it. But look, let's get into it today. We've got a few headlines, some interesting ones that we have maybe not touched on before as well. So, Led, you're going to take us through the Venezuelan stock market before we get into the other stuff. What do we need to know?
Yeah, absolutely. For those watching us on YouTube or on X video, they can see a beautiful chart which I'm sharing on screen, which is the Venezuelan stock market being up 14.5% on the day, being up 199.7% on the month, and being up more than 3,000% over the last year. Obviously, that pump over the last month, over the last week, is to do with Maduro's capture, and I think we've all seen this chart. So the other thing in with regards to Venezuela that I want to touch on is to have a look at what else has moved and see some second, third order effects. Obviously, we talked about the S&P 500, as well as the Dow Jones Industrial Average hitting an all-time high. That was one thing that we touched on. The other thing that we also mentioned on the show were U.S. oil companies, when Trump said that there are deals to be made, and Chevron and others should explore deals and should explore more business in Venezuela. These stocks did profit as well, did go up on that very day more than 7%. The other thing that is interesting is the bond side of things. So for years, Venezuela's debt seemed like that investment. 27 Venezuela missed payments on bonds issued by the government and its state-owned oil company. And now there is a very high hope amongst those investors that the United States removal of Maduro and its intention to sort of take over Venezuelan oil will help in paying back those bonds. A VanEck analyst is saying on that they see much greater upside in the bond market than what investors went to sleep thinking they were on Friday. So that is something that I also want to take a look at and monitor a bit, as we will probably keep coming back to Speak Venezuela to see what their bond market is doing, because I also find that to be just a fascinating like case study, because ultimately bond market also represents the trust in a country, in a country's economy. And the other thing, U.S. Weapon makers defense also did very well on the Maduro capture. Yes, we had the news which we mentioned in the roundup that happened a couple of days later with the buyback ban, and then the increase of the defense budget. But even before those two pieces of news, U.S. defense had a nice little run as well. And gold is down, silver is down on the day. But both of these assets also did profit, or were not at least negatively impacted from the situation in Venezuela. So I thought it was a bit more interesting to get a more holistic look on what has happened as a result of that capture than just saying that stock market's up a very absurd amount.
Interesting stuff. Do you think, Ledge, putting our geopolitical hat on, not to the extent that we're any experts in this, but is this the end of it? Obviously, I think Polymarket for Greenland has gone up a lot. I don't know if you're able to
Yeah,
check that
I'll bring it up.
now. And then I wonder what the numbers for regime change in Iran is. These are the other couple of places that have been mentioned. I've seen the conversation around Greenland, I've seen the conversation about Iran. I don't know if there's anything to read into this, but I guess if you think that it's not only the idea that this will happen, it's the anticipation of any of these things. When we started talking about defense at the end of the last year, which is not long ago, to be fair, it's also the anticipation of them, which makes the prices go up, I think. But as you said in that article just now, Ledge, like all of the US defense weapons makers were up even after the news. So it seems like it's not necessarily a sell the news event for defense, because if something is a surprise, like I think the Maduro capture took a lot of people by surprise, then it's not really a sell the news event. People, I think, bought on the news, if anything. So feels like a trend for the year. That's why we kind of identified it at the end of last year. Shout out to Crypto Condom again for the excellent insight and research that they've been sharing. That's kind of helped me understand some of the stuff that's going on in that industry. So interesting. Ledge, do you have a view here? Do you have a further take before we get into the next one?
Not necessarily a further take, because I do agree with you, but just to answer or give more details on both the poly markets, which you mentioned, in terms of Iran's supreme leader to be out by June 30th, poly market with 1.7 million volume, so not the most amount of volume, but still somewhat significant, has gone up from its lows at around 20% over the last month or so to a 36% chance. And then will Trump acquire Greenland before 2027? Also now doubled up, used to be at 6-7%, is now at 15%, which is a poly market with $3 million in volume.
Interesting. Okay, well, I doubt buying it after the fact. This does seem, I don't know, I wouldn't necessarily buy any of those now. The ideal way to play poly market is probably to buy it before and then sell the news, I think, specifically on poly market. But
also, I think that's such a complex market in terms of what it actually means that US or that Trump acquires Greenland, that I would not want to get in the discussion of these rules.
Yeah, the question is, will Trump acquire Greenland? Like, what does acquire mean? I heard, for example, Venezuela didn't count as an invasion, right?
Yeah, because it was too short to be an invasion, right?
Yeah, there is no invasion. There was just a kidnap or something like that. So yeah, you want to be careful on the wording on these markets for sure, if you are playing them. But look, let's get into the second headline, moving away from some of the geopolitical stuff into this news on China. The news is that Beijing has tapped WeBank, Alipay Bank, and 8 other banks to pay interest on digital yuan holdings. Key news here is that banks will let investors use Chinese CBDC to buy stocks and bonds. The digital yuan holders will get quarterly interests payout starting on March the 20th. So that's pretty soon. And wallet holders must complete extra identity checks to receive the interest. This is one of the things I found in America and in the and Europe. People are incredibly resistant to these identity checks of various forms, whether it's an official identity card, whether it's identity checks of some type. But it's obviously incredibly common in China. It's also very common in the Middle East. There are definite benefits to it. And yes, there are potential drawbacks in the circumstance of a kind of tyrannical authoritarian regime, which some people might describe some of the world's regimes as. But that's what they are going to do. Interestingly, Coinbase CEO Brian Armstrong, I'm just going to pull up the tweet that he had. I think I've spelt Brian wrong here, so let me find it. He had this to comment on this. He said, where is it? Where is it? I think I can't find it at the moment. Oh, here we go. China has decided to pay interest on their own stablecoin because it benefits ordinary people, and they recognize it as a competitive advantage. He says, I worry we are missing the forest through the trees in the US. Rewards on stablecoins will not change lending one bit. It does have a big impact on whether US stablecoins are competitive or not. Rewards or even paying interest benefits ordinary people just like community lending does. We have to let the market do both. Obviously, what's happening in the US is that the stablecoins are getting fought entirely by the banking lobby because they do not want people to earn on their dollars. The banks obviously want to keep the interest for themselves. And so they're trying to lobby in different ways to say that stablecoins are bad and you don't want to use them because it's going to help. Or, sorry, it's not that the stablecoins are bad, it's that the stablecoin issuers shouldn't be able to pass on the rewards to the stablecoin holders because that ruins the banking model, which is give us your money. We get all the interest. We just give you like a little bit. So people are going to have to figure it out. I actually agree with Brian Armstrong here. The US is going to have to stay competitive. You can't. The old banking model is going to be done for, and they need to evolve fast. I think they will figure out a way to evolve fast, but they need to do it sooner rather than later. I think. Ledge, do you have a view here on this? The reason why I kind of picked it out as maybe exceptionally interesting news because on the back of that interesting conversation I watched on China and US. I just think this is another example where the rest of the world is underestimating how far and how well China is doing. It continues to underestimate and degrade actually some of the achievements in China. And there's not necessarily achievement in China, but this is shows that they're far more forward looking than maybe people give them credit for. A view here, Ledge, before we get to the final bit.
Yeah, absolutely agree with that. I think another thing tying to China and tying to that is that China also has its own government-run blockchain and has had that for multiple years, and it's working very well. Can connect tons of like banks and industries and companies, etc. And China is not really getting the credit for that. And it's obviously not decentralization what stands at the top of that, but more so the government or governance control. But still, it is a running setup, and China can do things very quickly, being run in a more centralized fashion and not being the Ethereum of countries. So I do agree with that, and I do agree with Brian Armstrong's point on the competitiveness as well.
Okay, final headline: Zcash in disarray. Here, what on earth is happening? When I heard this news, I was literally just thinking, what's going on, guys? Like I was already kind of pivoting from crypto into some other stuff. It's like you can't just all quit and send the coin down 20%. Like that's not allowed. Like, like what on earth are we investing in when this is happening? But then I haven't read the article, so tell me what we need to know. Give us some color here on what's going on with Zcash.
Yeah, absolutely. Headline is Zcash developers quit. They are forming a new company after a clash in the board. The entire Electric Coin company, which is the team behind Zcash, did resign yesterday. The founder of Zcash, Josh Swihart, described that as a constructive discharge by the Bootstrap board. He had a post out on that. Let me get it up on screen to give some more color before I go back to the article. Josh said over the past few weeks, it's become clear that the majority of Bootstrap board members, which is a non-profit created to support Zcash, have moved into clear misalignment with the mission of Zcash. And yesterday, as I said, the entire ECC team left. In short, the terms of our employment, he goes on to say, were changed in ways that made it impossible for us to perform our duties effectively and with integrity. They are founding a new company, Still the same team, still the same mission, building unstoppable private money. And also goes on to say that the protocol is not affected by that. Going back to the article, the other thing that I want to point out is that this is not the first time that we've seen a clash or happening around Zcash, senior to Zcash leadership. These resignations, they do add to a series of senior departures across the Zcash ecosystem in recent years. Josh Swihart himself only became CEO in December 2023 after the long-term project leader stepped down following 8 years in charge. And also, Peter Van Valkenburg, who was at the Zcash Foundation, did resign at the start of last year. So and also they did recently undergo some organizational restructuring in December of last year. So it has been a very volatile time, I would say, for Zcash, in particular from the start of last year to now, so over the last 12 months, which is something that I did or was not really aware of. Obviously, the token price is affected by that. Let's get the chart up again. Tokens down almost 20% on the day and has fallen under $400. Is trading just shy of $398 at the moment.
They say, don't worry about it. The protocol's fine. Like, are they going to create a different Zcash now? Are they just forming another company to continue to build Zcash? I didn't understand that part.
From my understanding, it's going to be a different company, but they will continue running the same protocol. But this is from what I was able to gather.
I don't know if people know, you can't just do that. Like, I decreasingly have any faith in this industry because it just has no common sense. Like, if you think about something that's been built and it is owned by one company, and look, I don't know, we don't know what you just said is accurate, right? And we actually don't know what the specific plans are. But I'm just saying, I'm creating this hypothetical situation, which would not surprise me in this space because no one does any legal thinking. If you build something, this is just for people to know. If you build something when you are working at one company, the thing that you built is owned by that company or entity or whatever ownership structure you built it in. You can't just leave, start something else, and then continue working on the thing that is owned by a different company. Like, unless that company contracts you to work on that specific thing because you don't own the thing anymore, because you now work at a different entity. You've got no relationship with that original company. This should be obvious, I think. Maybe I'm being too harsh and everyone's figured it out. There's some other stuff going on that we don't know details yet. They did say, hang tight, we'll figure it out, or something like that. But I don't know. There's a lot of things that don't make sense in this space, especially as it comes to ownership structures. And that was incredibly apparent in the era of DAOs in 2021, where everyone thought that, oh, we can just do whatever we want and we can't be sued because we're a DAO. Like, it's just unbelievable underappreciation of how the law works. You can't just pretend like nothing exists, because someone has to, something or someone has to be able to be sued for the actions of that entity. You can't just say we're a DAO, we don't exist. And there were genuinely people who thought that that was possible. And if there's no entity, then it's just all of you as individuals who can be sued, because someone has to be, there is some legal person or entity that is on the hook for this stuff. So that's just a little legal rant for you in case you are thinking of abandoning your project and continuing to work on it. But I'm sure this will be all resolved in no time, Legendary, and your Zcash will be back to the value that you bought it at. Are you optimistic? What's your, I mean, I bought a little bit higher from here as well, though it was a small amount. What's your view when you read something like this about an asset that you just bought?
I'm asking myself, why did I do that? And I am utterly confused because none of that makes any sense for all of the legal reasons which you mentioned. But I find that Wirehead X in the YouTube comments had a wonderful closing thought on that, which is OpenAI started as a non-profit. Nothing is impossible.
It did. And you think that it's not a non-profit now, but we will see. I don't know if that's going to stay from a legal perspective. So I know you can just, it seems like you can just say anything. Like we are this one day and then we're something else another day, but the law might disagree with you, and the people who invested in you and will claim ownership over your protocol or entity might disagree with you if you just make stuff up as you move things forward. So look, we don't know the specific details here. I'm just going off a little bit based on some old wounds. And I mean, not that I was specifically hurt by it, but just going off on some old thoughts. But hope that was interesting. As always, guys, that is our show for today. Just to remind you, it's every single day, Monday to Friday, 7 a.m. Eastern Time, live on X Video, YouTube, and you can catch us on Apple and Spotify and TikTok if you want the shorts of this excellent conversation. Thank you to my co-host, Legendary. Thank you so much for joining us. As always, we'll be back same time, same place tomorrow. Have a wonderful day. Take care. See you tomorrow. Bye-bye.